In the bustling city of Adana, lived a man named Mr. Olatunji, a billionaire, powerful, respected, and dangerously smart. Yet one day, he did the unthinkable, he pretended to be blind just to test his wife's loyalty. She had always said she would love him no matter what. But when she thought he couldn't see, everything changed. Would she remain faithful, or would she betray him in ways that would leave you speechless? Let's find out in this unforgettable story of love, deception, and painful truth. The rain fell softly outside the Okunlola mansion, brushing against the wide glass windows like a gentle reminder that even the richest roofs could not keep out the storms of life. Mr. Tunde Okunlola sat in his private study that evening, staring blankly into the fireplace. His hands trembled slightly as he held a glass of untouched wine. He was a man who had built empires, real estate, oil, tech. But in that quiet room surrounded by wealth, he felt like a beggar asking one question. Does she truly love me? His wife, Lara, was beautiful, intelligent, and 30 years younger. When he married her, people whispered. Some said she was after his money, while others claimed she was just waiting for his will. But Lara had always been convincing. Her tears, her gentle touches, her constant declarations of love. She had once said in front of all their friends at his birthday dinner, even if you go blind tomorrow, I will never leave you. I will never look at another man. I will love you until the end. The guests clapped. Tunde smiled that day, but deep inside, he wondered if her words were rehearsed. Now, years later, he was finally ready to find out. The next morning, Tunde summoned his long-trusted private doctor, Dr. Femi. Tunde, are you all right? You sounded disturbed on the phone, the doctor asked, concern in his eyes. Tunde looked up slowly. I want you to help me run an experiment. I need you to tell my wife and the world that I've lost my sight. Dar. Femi blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. You want to pretend to be blind? Yes, Tunde said firmly. I want to test my wife's loyalty. I need to see if she truly loves me or the man I used to be. Femi sat back in disbelief. Tunde, that's dangerous, emotionally, psychologically. My mind is made up. I've already arranged for a temporary staff to cover your schedule. You'll be compensated well for your role. I just need you to act as if you've diagnosed me with permanent retinal damage. Femi sighed and nodded slowly. You've always been a wise man, Tunde. I'll do it, but I pray you don't regret what you find. 2 days later, Lara returned from a weekend spa retreat. She entered their mansion with a bright smile, shopping bags in both hands. Honey, I bought that Italian perfume you like. She paused when she saw him seated quietly on the living room couch, wearing dark glasses, a walking stick resting by his side. Tunde, what's going on? She asked, rushing to him. He didn't look up. I went to the hospital, Lara. My eyes, something went wrong. The doctor said it's permanent. I can't see. She stood frozen for several seconds, scanning him up and down. You're joking, she said, trying to laugh. Come on, Tunde, that's not funny. I'm not joking, he said quietly. I'm blind. Silence. She slowly sat beside him and reached for his hand. I don't understand. How were you fine just last week? They said something about optic nerve damage. It's rare, sudden, irreversible. Lara blinked rapidly. The disbelief on her face gradually melted into something else, not concern, not compassion, but calculation. But when she spoke, her voice was smooth as honey. Then I'll be your eyes, my love, she whispered, caressing his hand. I made a vow, remember? He smiled gently, but it didn't reach his heart. Yes, I remember. That night, she cooked his favorite meal, pounded yam with egusi soup, and even fed him herself, gently blowing on each spoonful. Say, ah, she cooed. You see, I still know how to take care of my man. Tunde chuckled. He played along, but deep within, he was watching, waiting. Later, in the dark, she helped him into bed. "Everything's going to be okay," she whispered as she laid beside him. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." But after she turned off the light, he heard her breathing shift. It was no longer calm. She was thinking, planning. And Tund, behind closed eyes and beneath the weight of his act, knew the real test had just begun. The cracks in the facade. By the end of the first month, Tund had memorized every sound in the house, every footstep, every voice, every whisper. Being blind had heightened his other senses, and now he listened with a level of detail that shocked even him. Laura, in those early days, was still playing the perfect wife. She ensured the staff spoke gently to him and led him around the house like a beautiful carer. Sometimes she even massaged his shoulders while whispering, "You're still the most handsome man I know, my love." But something in her was off. Tund could feel it. Her affection felt mechanical, as though she was following a script she no longer believed in. Then the first crack appeared. One quiet afternoon, while Tund sat on the veranda pretending to nap, he heard her on the phone. Her tone was hushed, excited, but not the kind of excitement a wife has when talking about her husband. "No, no, don't worry," she giggled. "He can't see a thing. I swear, he's totally blind now. It's like living with a lifeless statue." A pause, then laughter. Tund's fingers tightened around his walking stick. His chest burned with betrayal, but his face remained still, expressionless. This was just the beginning. Later that evening, she came to him with a tray of soup. "Open your mouth," she said sweetly. "I made this just for you." He obeyed, watching her through his sunglasses. Her eyes didn't look at him the way they used to. No warmth, no spark, just irritation masked by a smile. That night, he heard her take an unusually long shower. When she returned to bed, she lay stiffly beside him, her phone glowing under the covers. She didn't touch him or kiss him goodnight. He closed his eyes and listened. A week later, things escalated. It started with a new perfume. Laura began wearing a bold, seductive fragrance that Tund knew wasn't for his benefit. He'd complimented her scent once, and she'd smirked. "Just something I picked up." "You wouldn't know it anyway," she'd said with a little too much edge in her voice. Soon after, she started dressing differently. Tighter skirts, bolder colors, high heels in the hallway at night, long phone calls in the guest room, and silence whenever he entered a room. The ultimate betrayal. One evening, Tund sat in his study. Laura thought he was asleep in the bedroom. Through the open window, he heard a soft knock at the gate, then footsteps and a man's voice. "Babe, I missed you." "Shoo," Laura whispered. "Don't be loud. He's inside." "I thought you said he sleeps early." "He does, like a log. He won't hear anything." They both giggled. Tund stood in the shadows, heart pounding not from rage, but from sorrow. He peeked through the blinds and saw her, arms around a tall, muscular man in a black t-shirt. They kissed, right there in front of the mansion. She led him into his house. He didn't follow. Not yet. He returned to the bed and laid down as if nothing had happened. 30 minutes later, Laura tiptoed into the room and slid under the covers. Her perfume lingered, mixed now with another man's scent. Tund kept his eyes closed. He wanted to scream, to tear the room apart, but he needed more. He needed to be sure. Over the next few days, she became more careless. Sometimes she forgot to serve his meals. "Can't you see I'm busy? Do you think you're the only person in this house?" she would snap. Other times, she would turn the television to loud music channels and dance seductively in the sitting room, thinking he couldn't see her. One afternoon, while he pretended to read Braille by the window, he heard her in the kitchen with the maid. "Honestly, I don't know how long I can keep this up," Laura said. "Madam," the maid whispered. "But what if Olga gets better?" "He won't. He's useless now. I didn't marry a blind man. I married a billionaire. But if all he can offer me now is silence and blindness, then I'll get what I need somewhere else. The maid didn't reply. Tun did not confront her. Not yet. Then came the most painful betrayal yet. One evening, he heard laughter from the backyard. He quietly made his way to the kitchen corridor and stood by the open window. There, in the staff quarters, stood Lara and Bayo, their 22-year-old houseboy. They were playfully throwing water at each other from a bucket. Then laughter turned to flirtation. Flirtation turned into a kiss. Tun's knees buckled. His wife with a boy barely old enough to drink. That night when she served him dinner, he looked at her face longer than usual. "Lara, do you think love can survive anything?" he asked. She smiled tightly. "Yes, of course, real love can. Even blindness." A pause, then a soft laugh. "Of course, Tund. Even that." She kissed his forehead and walked away. And as she did, Tund whispered to himself, "Then why does mine feel like it's dying?" The trap is set. Tund had lived through betrayals in business, but nothing could prepare him for what he was witnessing in his own home. What had begun as subtle suspicion had grown into a full-blown spectacle of infidelity. And the most painful part? It was all happening under his roof. Lara no longer pretended to be loving. She had grown bolder, more confident. As far as she was concerned, her husband was completely powerless, a blind old man, unaware of the filth crawling around his own house. But Tund was not blind. He was a man who saw everything. Every stolen glance, every forbidden kiss, every bedroom light turned off too quickly, every whispered lie. And nothing cut deeper than the night he saw his wife enter the guest room with Bayo. That night, Tund had faked a headache and gone to bed early. Lara thought he was sound asleep. Around 11:30 p.m., he heard the creak of the guest room door and the soft pad of bare feet. Then the unmistakable sound of lips meeting. "Are you sure he's asleep?" Bayo whispered. "Trust me," Lara giggled. "He's useless now. He barely hears anymore." They laughed. The bed creaked. Tund gripped his blanket so tightly that the veins in his hand throbbed. The next morning, he called his lawyer and closest confidant, Barrister Alabi, using a secured line in his study. "It's worse than I feared," Tund said, his voice low and shaking. "How far has it gone, sir?" the lawyer asked. "She's sleeping with a houseboy, with strange men, planning things. She thinks I'm helpless, but it's time." The lawyer hesitated. "Are you sure you want to go public?" "Not yet. I need evidence, unshakable proof. Then, let's set the trap." That same week, Tund installed discrete cameras around the mansion. Most were tiny pinhole devices hidden inside wall frames, curtain rods, and even his own walking stick. Footage was streamed directly to a private server, accessible only by him and his lawyer. Within days, the footage piled up. Kisses, embraces, conversations. One afternoon, Tund watched a recording of Lara sitting on the couch with another man, a new one. This one was bald, muscular, with gold teeth. They drank wine and laughed loudly. "So, you mean he just stays in the room all day?" the man asked. "Blind as a bat. Sometimes I wave my hand in his face, and he doesn't flinch." "It's hilarious," Lara said, crossing her legs seductively. "Damn, I'd have run away by now." "Run?" "No, I'm about to run the show," she laughed and poured another glass. Another evening, Tund sat in his garden, the one Lara used to walk him through. Now she avoided the place like it was haunted. Bayo approached him with a tray of juice. "Here's your drink, sir," he said politely. "Thank you, Bayo," Tund replied, watching him from behind his sunglasses. "You need anything else?" "No, sir. But tell me, what does loyalty mean to you?" Bayo looked up. He forced a smile. Loyalty, sir. It's doing what you're told and respecting who you serve. Tund nodded slowly. Good answer. But his heart boiled. The boy didn't know that his lies were already documented, stored in high-definition clarity. Days later, Lara approached Tund while he sat in his private lounge pretending to struggle with a magazine. Sweetheart, she said, her voice overly sweet. I was thinking about the properties. You know, with your condition, it might be best if I manage a few things for now. He tilted his head. You mean sign some over to you? Yes, only the Ikoyi apartments and the Victoria Island estate. Just for now, you know, to relieve your stress. I'll be your eyes and hands. Tund smiled faintly. Bring the documents. The next day, she brought 2. He signed them, knowing they were false papers crafted by his lawyer, dummy titles. Bait. She kissed him afterward. You won't regret this. But he already had. Later that week, he listened to her talking on the phone in the dining room. He signed it. Yes, imagine this fool doesn't even know he just gave me access to 2 properties worth over $1 billion. Once we finish the papers, we move. A pause. Yes, baby. I'm serious. We sell the house, disappear, and you and I start a new life. No more secrets. Tund's heart sank. Not because of the money, but because the woman he once trusted with his soul was planning to sell the very home they had built together and run. She didn't just betray his body, she betrayed his name, his honor, his legacy. That night, he stood before his bedroom mirror, looking at his own reflection. He removed his glasses slowly. This is the woman I married, he said to himself. And this is the life I chose. But not anymore. The trap was set. The cameras were live. And the day of reckoning was near. Lara stood before the bedroom mirror, fixing her makeup while humming a tune. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and she picked it up quickly. Hello, Mr. Depot. Yes, I've confirmed the papers. Everything looks good. Tund won't be involved in the transaction at all. He's indisposed, she said, chuckling. Tund, lying in bed behind her with his back turned, kept his breathing steady. He was wide awake, listening. Yes, Lara continued, walking into the hallway. Once we finalize the house sale, I'll move the funds to the new account and disappear. Just make sure we keep this quiet. He could hear the click of her heels fade as she descended the stairs, her voice growing distant. Disappear. Tund turned slowly and sat up in bed, staring at the door she had just walked through. So this is it, he murmured. She's ready to take it all. Later that afternoon, he summoned Barrister Alabi to the private lounge. She's now trying to sell the mansion, Tund said. I want the buyer traced. I want every conversation recorded. I want a legal net so tight that not even her shadow can escape. Barrister Alabi nodded grimly. We're close to the end, Tund. Shall we act now? He shook his head. One more night. I want to look her in the eyes when she thinks I can't. I want her to fall in the trap with her heart open. That evening, Lara entered the bedroom in a red silk robe, her makeup still fresh. She sat on the bed beside Tund and stroked his shoulder. You've been so quiet lately, she said softly. I've been thinking, he replied. About what? About who I am without my eyes. She laughed lightly. You're still the same man, only a bit slower. He nodded. Do you love me, Lara? She paused. Why would you ask me that? Just wondering if love needs eyes to survive. She leaned closer and kissed his forehead. Of course I love you. But the kiss felt cold, empty, a rehearsed gesture meant to distract, not to comfort. The next morning, while Tund sat in the garden pretending to struggle with his phone, he heard Lara giving instructions to the housekeeper. Pack my clothes quietly and don't tell anyone. I'm traveling for a while. Madam, are you not telling Olga? Olga is blind. What is he going to do? Chase me? They both laughed. Tund clenched the armrest of his chair. Later that day, Lara welcomed another man into the mansion. His name was Segan, muscular, flashy, dressed in gold chains and designer shoes. He looked like he belonged in a club, not a home. Tund, seated quietly in the corner of the living room, could smell the man's cologne before he saw him. Segan walked past him, laughing. So, this is the chief, huh? Doesn't look like much. Keep your voice down, Lara whispered. He's harmless now. Just sits there all day like a statue. You sure he's really blind? Trust me. Sometimes I wave my hand right in front of him. Nothing. They laughed again. Tund's jaw tightened. Segan sat on the couch, pulled Lara onto his lap, and they kissed right in front of the man she had vowed to love in sickness and in health. And Tund watched it all through the thin slit of his sunglasses. That night, Lara brought Segan into their matrimonial bedroom. She turned on soft music, lit scented candles, and giggled like a teenager. Shoo, don't worry, she whispered. He's fast asleep. Segan looked uneasy. What if he wakes up? Even if he does, what will he see? I've been doing this for months. Trust me, he's nothing now. She laughed and pulled Segan closer. Just then, Tund's bedroom door creaked open. Lara gasped, nearly dropping the wine glass in her hand. Jesus, he's up. Segan stood, panicked. Should I run? No, no, relax, she whispered. Just don't say a word. Stand still. He won't see us. Tund stepped forward, walking stick tapping slowly. He stopped by the edge of the bed. The room was silent. Lara whispered again, he's just feeling around. Stay quiet. Don't talk. Tund stood still for several seconds. Then he removed his glasses. His eyes, clear, piercing, and full of fire, met hers. Lara, he said quietly. I see everything you've been doing. Segan stumbled backward. Lara's mouth dropped open. Wait, you're not blind, she stuttered. Tund's voice shook with emotion. No, I never was. I pretended to see your heart. Silence fell like a stone. You brought strangers into my house. You slept with a boy I fed and clothed. You tried to sell my home, my legacy. And all the while, you thought I was a fool. She fell to her knees. Please, Tund. I'm sorry. I thought. You thought I was weak, but I was patient. He turned to Segan. Get out of my house, now. Segan didn't wait. He grabbed his shoes and fled. Lara clutched his leg. Please, please don't throw me out. But the door behind them opened. 2 security guards entered. Tund pointed at her. Get this woman out of my house. Let her carry only the things she brought here, her lies, her greed, and her shame. As they dragged her out, she screamed, You can't do this. I'm your wife. You were, Tund said coldly. But not anymore. The aftermath. The night Lara was thrown out of Tund's mansion echoed in the minds of every staff member like a thunderclap. No one said a word, but everyone knew the master of the house had never been blind, and the mistress had never truly been loyal. Rain fell lightly as the guards escorted Lara to the front gate, barefoot and trembling. The makeup she had carefully applied earlier now ran down her cheeks, mixed with tears and humiliation. Please, Tund, please don't do this to me, she sobbed, struggling to keep her balance on the wet tiles. Tund stood at the top of the marble staircase like a king who had seen through the masks of betrayal. His voice was low but firm. Get out of my house, Lara. You lost your place here the day you thought blindness made me weak. Lara dropped to her knees. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I'm not proud of what I did, but I didn't mean to hurt you. Tund shook his head slowly, his cane resting beside him like a symbol of everything he had endured in silence. You brought men into my bed, my home. You mocked me when you thought I couldn't hear. You plotted to sell everything I worked for. And now you beg, not because you love me, but because your schemes failed. She cried harder, but Tund turned away. You failed the test of loyalty. Leave now or I'll have you arrested. By the next morning, the news had spread like wildfire across social media and gossip blogs. Billionaire Tund pretended to be blind, caught his wife cheating with multiple men. The footage from the hidden cameras had been leaked by Barrister Alabi to key media outlets under Tund's strict instructions. Some clips were blurred, some were silent, but the damage was done. Lara's face was everywhere. Disgraceful, people muttered in salons, offices, and markets. How could she? In his own house. That man is wise, sharp as a razor. I respect him. But inside the mansion, Tund felt no joy, only a deep hollow ache. He sat alone in his garden that afternoon, the same one where Lara once held his hand and told him she would love him forever. Now the silence around him wasn't just peaceful, it was heavy with memories. Bayo was gone, fired, blacklisted. And Lara? She had no family to run to. All the men she had entertained, Segan, Depo, even the houseboy, had vanished. No one wanted to associate with her anymore. Justice had been served, but it hadn't healed Tund's heart. That evening, Barrister Alabi visited again. The public's on your side, sir. Your foundation's donations have doubled overnight. Sponsors are calling. People see you as a symbol of wisdom and restraint. But Tund didn't smile. Tell me, Alabi, is it worth it, catching someone you love in a lie? The lawyer sat down beside him. Sometimes truth hurts more than betrayal, but it's still better than living in the dark. Tund nodded slowly. I'm not angry anymore. Just disappointed. You gave her a chance. I gave her my soul, Tund whispered. That night, he stood in the doorway of the once shared master bedroom. The sheets had been changed, but the scent and the echo still lingered. He walked slowly to the bed and sat down, clutching the edge of the mattress. I would have loved you forever, Lara, he murmured to the empty room. Even in my real blindness. His voice cracked and a single tear fell from his eye, not because he missed her, but because she never really saw him. In the days that followed, Tund moved forward, but cautiously. He set up a charity foundation in his late mother's name, the Eyes of Truth. Its mission was to support elderly individuals abandoned by their spouses or families. He poured his pain into purpose. He also restructured his will, leaving a significant portion of his wealth to the foundation rather than to any potential future wife. The staff noticed something different about him. He no longer wore his sunglasses. He walked with a steadier step. But his laughter was rare now, reserved. 1 week after Lara's exit, there was a quiet knock at the gate. The head guard opened it to find Lara standing there, barefoot, her once glowing skin now pale and blotched. I just want to talk to him, she whispered. The guard hesitated, then went to Tund. Sir, she's outside. She looks finished. Tund looked up from his journal. He said nothing for a while. Then he shook his head slowly. Tell her. I see her now more clearly than ever, and I'm not blind anymore to her lies, her greed, or her regret. Sir, should we let her go? Let the street teach her what I tried to protect her from. And so they did. The gates remained closed. Lara walked away into the shadows she had created for herself. Weeks passed. The mansion grew quieter, not from sadness, but from healing. The storm had cleared. The wounds, though deep, had begun to scar over. Tun now walked with his head held high, not because he had won,